I guess we'll start by call to order. So I'll just go through the list of personnel on the phone and just top to bottom on who's showing up on the screen. And then, Corey Oxner, Town of Superior, I believe that's Leslie is on. Susan Stanish, Dan, John, Todd, Alan, Corbett, Neil, and Ron. Did you change your name? Look at that.
Oh, we did.
Oh, I have no idea how. I have.
Wow.
And Sarah's not on yet. I haven't heard if she would be attending or not. Just want to get started. I forgot to say call to order, but call to order, did the roll call, agenda approval. I just want to touch base on what we have in the agenda tonight, and there's some additional discussions. Also, I believe that we were going to have a couple attendees call in for public comment. So just want to run down the list of some of the pieces that we've touched base on. I believe the agenda that was sent out had the PROSTAC amenities priorities list was number 1. Just want to try and approve that tonight. Trails discussion was item number 2. Budget recommendations, if we go into those very far, would be number 3. PROS master plan and just where we are with that is number 4. Weed and pest is just always something we cover in the second quarter. So I haven't followed up with Leslie if we have any discussion on that. And then I wanted to just touch base on the trail etiquette memo that we created at last meeting, and just touch base on how we could potentially put that out to the public as a just trail guide. And then I added from additional comments that we had received that there was discussion for the Zaharias property. And so we could touch base on that. So if we need to move any of these around in order, or if we want to, anyway, is there any other
one other thing, Corey, is the 3 bullet points to send to the town board. I put in that email that we talked about this last week or last month, I mean, and I put, Town 15. I put in sort of the history lesson of what we had in our statement from, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something like that. And then also the 3 bullet points.
Okay, so I would like to just move this. I think that we've looked at this a couple of times, so if we can put this second on the agenda. So I think we can quickly run through amenities and town board recommendation. I'm sure I did this wrong, Dan. You'll let me know that the note-taking system is going to get all goofed up, right?
Well, I was just going to suggest, could you zap this over to me? Because it looks different than what I've got.
Oh, I may have the wrong one that I opened.
I think it's just the stuff that you've just added, but.
It's really the Zaharias and the Town 15.
Okay.
It should be, the highlight here, that and this were the only 2 that I added based on additional comments. And my timelines, I think I might have goofed up because I can't remember if I took the one Leslie updated or the one that I was updating after I sent it to her. Okay, so with that though, we'll come back around. Dan, if we want to go in a different order, just let me know how that works with note taking. But while we kind of look at the agenda and notes, I believe, Leslie, you have to help me out with how does it work with attendees and public comment? Or hold on. I forgot. We talked about the agenda, but is everyone approving of the agenda? We have to approve the agenda, right?
I have a question about the agenda.
Okay.
Which is, we already spent a significant amount of time on the Zaharias proposal a meeting or 2 ago, so I'm wondering what our goal is there.
The planning commission heard it last night, and I didn't get a chance to hear it. So I was hoping we might have an update on if they approve the rezoning.
Oh, we're, okay.
So it's
So
more
since
of
it was
a,
a planning commission meeting last night, I was hoping just to get an update. That was it.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you.
and then at the same time, I believe, well, so are we okay with the agenda? Any other comments on that?
I think it looks good.
It's good.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we'll move forward with this. So to get back to public comment though, Leslie, you'll have to help me out on how public
Sure.
comment works.
Sure. So we have one attendee, Kathy Hardy-Mullen is in attendance, and the directions that are in the chat right now provides instruction that attendees, if they would like to speak, can raise their hand, and there should be, if they navigate to the bottom of their screen, there should be a hand that they can click on to raise their hand. So when we get to the public comment period, Kathy can raise her hand and I will allow her to speak.
Yeah, I thought I saw her raise her hand. There you
Yep.
go.
Yep, so that's correct. Kathy, you got the button, and once we're ready for comment, I'll go ahead and turn your audio on. Thank you. Are you all ready for that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Kathy, you should be unmuted now.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes.
Good
Hi.
evening. This is Kathy Cardy-Mullen, 1250 South Boyero Court. This is a different format. It's kind of fun to see you all with your backgrounds. I really like your background, Todd. Wish we were there.
Yes.
And I believe I saw Corey, is this your last meeting or is this your last
I think I have one more guidance with Todd and then I'm complete.
Yeah, well, congratulations if you guys put in 8 years or whatever it is that you put in all the years on the committee, because it's been really wonderful.
Mhm.
Also, I want to congratulate you on the CenturyLink purchase. That's an amazing coup. That is great. You know, that was an amazing deal. So my heart's always been with the Zaharias, as well as all of the open space in town. I didn't want to pin one against the other, but I'm glad that came through. Last night, the planning commission went to 11 o'clock and they did not decide to vote yet. They are going to reconvene on June 2nd because it went too late. But there was probably an hour of public comment, all in support of keeping Zaharias, as the comp plan says, as open space or space for future needs for the community, especially around parks, open space and trails next to Zaharias, since next to HHR, since the HHR is one of the few critical wildlife habitats that's been dubbed by Boulder County Open Space in all of the county. And we have it in our town. Boulder doesn't have one, Lafayette doesn't have one, Louisville doesn't have one, and we have one, and we're just kind of overlooking it. So it was kind of a time, and it may be a little bit too late, but if something goes wrong with this proposal and they go and the development goes down, or if there's a recession that affects them and we're back to ground zero, I'd like you to just consider these thoughts. And I sent out an email with a graphic that shows what you can have out there, which is basically a beautiful series of habitats that are preserved with trails and overlooking the water. With we have like over 133 species last year that came through. Now, that data is collected by the breeding bird team, and then we submit it to Cornell Lab, and it's a national database that keeps all those records. At the beginning of March and April, we had quite a few numbers. I probably would come away with 29 to 35 every time I would go out. Recently, because of all the noise and construction on 88th, which is understandable. You know, those have gone down drastically. I think I had only 6 the other day. And so it's impacted by the presence of people and machinery, obviously. So I know with the new proposal, which looks fabulous, I just wish it wasn't next to Zaharias, there is a trail that's supposed to go in, and I don't know, maybe you guys can make sure that the developer pays for that, not just it's donated, the land's donated to the town and the town is stuck developing it. And also, if 100 feet off is where this trail is, and it doesn't look like it's that far, if you can maybe put in some habitat, and right now they're still taking concessions from the developer, and I think on the second they're going to still consider some of those. Have them take some of those cattails from some of the adjacent ponds over here in Rock Creek that are just taking over our ponds, and put them down along the edge and see if they'll take, because that would give the animals at least some refuge. Because yeah, we're on we're 100 feet up, and then we're on this trail looking at them, but behind us is 180 units worth of 400 people or so. So it's just not the same that it is right now. So the impact's going to definitely change if it does go through. So I just wanted to just put that out, because in that graphic, there's also a place for, I know you're looking for a recreation center space, I believe you're still looking. It would be a phenomenal complex for the future. And you're probably thinking, well, how are we going to pay for that? Oh, there you go, there it is. How are we going to pay for that? Well, if you look at it, you can see solar powered roofs. A second story, you see the whole Front Range from up there. And you could have piped in sound from the birds on the lake all the way up to the rec center in like a little nature center area in that. You could have a sunny patio that connects with the trails that 80% of it is protecting the habitat, where you have eagles flying in. Last year, there was a red-tailed hawk took down a prairie dog and was eating it. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, came 2 bald eagles, which are twice the distance, twice the wingspan, like 8 feet. They shooed away these red tails and took over and feasted on it. It took about 15 minutes to devour everything, and it was gone. So, I mean, it's like you have these moments, these National Geographic moments out there that just like are, you know, it's hit or miss, but it's just one of those. It could be a town crown jewel, really, if we made it that. So I'm an outdoor educator. I would love to see educational signs. I'd love to see the schools come out and use that for a lab. If we have more homeschools, and because of COVID, people are looking for places to go within their town and their community. And it just kind of meets all the parameters. And I'm just frustrated that we don't, as residents, have more times to, in the last 4 years, to speak up and be heard and get questions answered by the town decision makers. I know it's policy and you have restrictions, but it just seems archaic, because now when we have all these people speaking up and they say, I don't know one person that wants to have more people over more nature, and it's like, what are we going to do now, you know? So anyhow, thanks for listening. I appreciate your support, and I hope that that we can get some access one way or the other over there, whether it's through the development or through something like this natural park. And there's ways to raise money. There's ways to get them to donate money from the foundation, the Victor Thomas Foundation, who's one of the owners right now. I think it's Zaharias' daughter's family and another family member. They have quite a bit of collateral, and they might be looking for something to donate. You never know. Maybe you could send that same team that you sent to do the CenturyLink over to them, see what, if it comes to that. I know you have all met with the developer and the owners over for 4 years, and that it's easy to just, you know, become friends with them and know what they want, but nobody's really talked to the residents. And I challenge you to find 10 people between now and the board meeting on June 8th, 10 people that want more people in town over a natural park. So thanks.
So is there any, thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can ask a couple questions, or if anyone has any questions, just to make sure. Any thoughts from the group? I have one just quick with the the rendering that you provided, I think it was sent out as a link for everyone. I brought it up on the screen there. But your request to not develop the land, is that a not touch the land or still develop for something like park type space? Because the rendering shows trails and improvements.
Yes, thank you. It would be commercial development and residential development, but this would be light development for the, you know, for the open space trails. And hey, I'm all for putting a nature center in or a rec center in over by the highway, hide that damn highway and keep it quiet and preserve as much of those prairie dogs colonies as we can. And I don't know, that's 22 acres. I mean, where are you going to find that? And what land are we leaving for our future generations? You know, your families and your kids and your grandkids. I mean, what are they going to have to look forward to? In 40 years, you have a 40-year-old apartment complex all broken down, or you have a thriving natural park. So just and just, I know money's always the key, but guess what? You always find money when you want it. And people, one thing that somebody suggested last night is put it to the voters. If people want a rec center, if they want a nature center, if they want to preserve this, have them do another tax, you know? So it's just, there's different ways to partner. And I think Boulder County may come around with some more money now. I know they weren't ready a few years ago, but I think they might. They like that reservoir a lot.
Right. Well, thank you for your comments. And any other comments from the group? If not, we'll close the public comment and proceed into, I don't know, how, is there any other attendees, Leslie? No. So with that, we'll close the public comment and move into the agenda and discussion items.
Hey, Corey, sorry, I'm a little bit delayed getting unmuted. I don't have a question. Just wanted to say thanks to Kathy for pulling that information in, for bringing it to us. Do really appreciate every time we get public comment for anything we can get public comment for. So thank you for pulling that together.
Okay. Okay. So
One other just last thought on that, based on what she said on the last comment about Boulder County, is has Boulder County chimed in on this? If this is such a treasure, it seems like maybe they would actually care about this and have something to say. I don't know if they have been at the Planning Commission meetings or not. Anyway, just a curiosity, I guess.
We probably have to pull up the document that we sent to them, because it's always part of the, can we purchase this together with Boulder County? And there's a document that we've seen at these meetings where it shows what their response was.
Okay.
yeah, it's the Boulder County Open Space and Trails recommendation of what they would, and it includes all the counties or all the municipalities around. So, and then the response, and like Ron said, I can't remember what the response has been, but it's always one of the three that was on the list. Okay. So with that, let's see, how do I get back to share screen? So next on there was, and we have the Zaharias down here. We'll do a quick hit on the very end with that, but PROSTAC amenities priorities list. So I believe that we have the amenities priorities list was filled out a few times. And oops. So this list is, it has everyone's rankings and numbers in here, and then that rolls into, oh, can you guys still hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. I'm getting an unstable network. So anyway, ranked them by high to low, high being, or if you put a 3 in, that's a high. So the more numbers we get, the higher number gets. So with our rankings for amenities, we're still looking at the community center. A passive space is number 1. Indoor recreation, promenade park, additional shade structures, pickleball courts, and top 3 trails. That would be our top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 community park holes and nets. That one was more of a maintenance item, but it seems like it has comments. And multi-purpose field, and then down to baseball, indoor pool, etc. So I can keep going through all these. I just wanted to bring it up, show you what the results are, and have additional discussion about it. I know, Dan, you had some comments that were put in on the side, and a lot of these things I think we'll continue to discuss as the committee works through the master planning and hopefully solidifies how some of these could be incorporated or use and requirements in the neighborhoods. So any comments, questions about this?
Is there anything, Corey, that jumped out at you as odd? I didn't particularly see anything that just seemed kind of like we totally were missing it. Like something you'd expect to be a high thing that maybe we misunderstood and it wasn't marked high or something. I didn't see anything like that.
No, and you know, it seems like they all move around a little bit, but it all kind of stacks where, you know, the community center and indoor. I think the one that jumped out to me was the Promenade Park jumped up really high with all the engagement we had in the last year, and so that's still a high priority for the group. And, you know, that is slated for that Tract H area over there.
I'd be curious to know, for the folks that ranked pickleball high, was that related to our involvement with the building of the currently planned Autry Park pickleball courts? Or is this, do you already believe that we will not have enough capacity in those courts, and this is regarding putting them somewhere else?
I marked it low because I thought they were already happening, honestly, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too, was we were assuming that Autry Park is going to happen, and this would now be talking about pickleball courts somewhere other than Autry Park, or some addition to the stuff that we were already going to build.
And I would say I have a different mindset on it, in the fact that we've had expedited trails done in 2016 that were never built. So to me, I always say, until it's built, I want it high on the list, unless it's not a priority.
Okay.
So I understand, you know, until you start seeing, even the skate park was ranked high until it was actually built, because it took a few turns and delays. So you know, just from a recommendation, I would say that would be a mindset for the group, to make sure, you know, that we're getting the amenities installed. And because I know even this column here, it was potential town center parks 1 and 2 that may have these, but those are still continuing to take a certain amount of time. So, you know, if they're ranked higher, they may get installed sooner, or they may have opportunity, and the board will look to this list and select based on budget and opportunity within these. So
a question about that, Corey, like with the PROST master plan, I mean, it went from number 1 to 11, you know, and it's kind of in the same bucket as a pickleball courts. The board approved both last week. You know, is this sort of a deprioritization of the master plan from your perspective? It's, you know, or is it, you know, because we already took a half foot forward at the last PROSTAC meeting, and it was likely to happen.
Just want to catch me in my I would say a little bit of both, but I remember in one of our last meetings when we talked about it, it's like, it's not really an amenity, it's more of a guide.
Okay.
And you know, if we don't get it, it's still missing that guide that we've been looking for, to make sure the pieces that are important are put in the right spot. So depends on how you look at it. I know I ranked it a little bit lower, just in the fact that again, to me, you know, after some of those discussions, the guide portion of it is more of a, hopefully we get it. If not, it's still, there's other pieces that I think are more important.
Fair enough.
But that's my opinion. So anyone else?
Hey, Todd, for next year, when we're doing this, let's think about this to try to have a uniform grading for, you know, let's have a conversation with with the members to say, okay, do we want to rank things higher if we think they're not going to, or lower if they think that they're going to get done this year or whatever? Let's have that conversation so we can at least try to all be on the same scale.
Right. I would agree with that, Corbett. Well, I guess the question would be, should we have that conversation now, and do we need to redo this with that in mind, or is it okay as is? I mean, are there particular things like that, like pickleball courts? I understand and hear what you say, Corey, on that, and I agree that I probably shouldn't have sort of demoted it, thinking that it's going to get done, because you just never know. But I know in my own rankings I did that, so just want to make sure that we're all good with where things land.
Yeah, and to me, the pickleball courts is a little different from the example of the updating the master plan, because you could, if you see that box in potential STC, you could, someone could look at this and say, oh, it looks like they knew that pickleball courts were going into Autry, and they still thought that it was really a high priority to get them in the Superior Town Center. But I'm not sure that's really what we were saying, that the people, what people were saying when they ranked it high. I can't speak for those who ranked it high, but.
So I can say I ranked it high, Dan, just as an example. I ranked it high with the understanding that it's not built yet. So that's why if they were built, I would rank it a 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we would feel like we had met the need.
Well, it also drop off the list as soon as it gets built, hopefully.
Right.
So, the only other thing I was just going to throw out too that kind of was surprising to me. The only one that stood out to me that was surprising was, I think the top 3 trails moved up a lot higher than it had been, and I think it was one of the pieces, because we always had the 5-year trails plan, and the trails were always a separate document, and integrating back into the amenities and just showing that trails are still pretty important. And I think with what we've all been seeing in the last couple months, trails are even more important to a lot of people right now, because they are our form of outdoor recreation. Even though we have parks, it's nice to see the parks open again this last week, but not all the park equipment is open, just parts. So.
And Todd, something that we may want to consider is adding in a weighting for each of these. So you could still rank things high if it's a high priority, but you reduce the weighting of it with the assumption that it may get built that year. So that way you can look and say, well, they did rate it high, but they still think it's a needed amenity, but because it was assumed it was going to get built this year, that they weighted it lower of importance.
Well, and another thing to point out that I hadn't really focused on, but there are 2 other columns that we get in there with ranked high, medium, low, and then top 3, and then the target for the next year. And that all comes into the fact that everyone gets numbers of votes. But if you look at it, Prost Master Plan is still, even though it's ranked lower, it's still, there's 5 people said that it's something we should do this year. And so hopefully it comes through this year. And even this one is like community center. Hopefully that gets done this year. So it's a couple on trails, and then, but you even get down to splash pad. It'd be great to have, people are like, it'd be great to have that, even though it's lower on the list. So there's lots of different ways to understand how everyone viewed and put down numbers. So.
But yeah, I think thinking through that, Corbett, for sure, and making sure we're all on the same page before we do this for trails and this, and just kind of in general how we're ranking it, make sure we're, because I think just from this discussion, it's clear we're not necessarily all doing it the same.
So with that, I guess to me, I'm hoping that as we continue into the master plan segment, that this list gets revised and kind of refined a little bit more with some professional help, if you will. But, helping locate and look at what's in the community and add in things that are important to the community. Additionally to what we've had in here. And I know this list has grown and shrank over the years, but Ron probably knows the most about the history on all the pieces in here.
Well, again, yeah, again, the purpose of this, remember, is 9 people putting their information together and just trying to get a summary.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I can point out is like the shades. It's just something that should be able to throw somewhere and get some more shade somewhere. So I noticed that was a big jump on the list. So shade structure. So, but that again, this is just again, something like this comes in real handy when we decide we're going to build Wildflower Park, and we need, okay, well, let's put some stuff in there. So that's the purpose of this. So, and any way you can clarify it makes it even better, Todd. So.
Okay, so any other discussion on this, or anyone want to make a recommendation that for this?
Just to add a question, for everybody who voted, the indoor pool fell dramatically. I think it's one of the biggest movers. Can anybody provide some context there? We went from it being in the top 3 to, top 20.
I'll weigh in on that. I ranked it lower because it just, to me, seems financially and practically kind of impossible at this point in time, given some of the other things that we have going on and that we've prioritized. That's just one person's opinion.
I think we've also had enough flexibility in the members of PROSTAC and with different opinions. There were some folks in the last couple of years who were really in favor of everything pool, and they would artificially, or not artificially, but they would push things higher than they should have, or than they are today.
Well, and I would say I kind of follow along with Susan in the fact that I think the indoor pool is still a piece that's wanted by a lot of people, but I think I was kind of let down in the fact that we worked so hard on trying to get it and realizing that the financials of it, you just couldn't get there. So it's kind of like, well, is there other things that are just as important within the community that would provide something that is attainable? I think the indoor pool is still something that a lot of people want, and it's still within our top 10 probably. It's just financially, maybe it was like Susan said, my mindset on when I ranked it, that it just didn't get as high.
I appreciate.
Seems to me like there's overlap too. Like community center could have an indoor pool. Indoor recreation is pretty broad, could contain a pool. So it's just kind of you wouldn't have just a single building with only a pool. So maybe lumping it in with one of those others keeps it in a.
And I think that also comes back to the history of just the write-up or the understanding of what each bullet point means, because the community center became more of a passive gathering center, and the recreation center, because as we worked through the development of impact sports and the potential pool, there was a recreation and community component to both of those. And the pool is still always the part that is the most expensive when we looked at all those numbers.
And the other thing with the pool is, I mean, are we talking about strictly a lap swimming type of pool? Or are we talking about, a family zero entry with water feature splash pad type of pool, or all of the above? It's just sort of undefined, I think. And that's why I feel like it's probably slipping.
No, I appreciate all the context, because the board looks at this, and then I think what I see is a list that's somewhat calibrated to relative expense levels. Some of the items in the top. Yeah, some of the items on the top 10 are really easy ones. Community bike racks and fixing the holes in the net. Those we can do with pocket change relative to an indoor pool. So I think that's really helpful as we go into the budget to what can we hit really easily on this list versus ones that are not quite as easy to do.
And Neil, I think Corey hit it on earlier, is that some things actually got pushed up, in my opinion. I know I did push some things up because it was like, well, based on COVID, these other things I thought were important, but really not as important as, other things that everybody can enjoy at any time. regardless of the situation that's going on. So you can see like the trails, you know, the top 3 trails, those got moved up a lot. And I think that has influence because of COVID.
No, it's,
Hey, Neil, I'll just let you know, I lowered it. I've always been high for me, but I lowered it because another factor in this is we had our chance and there just wasn't the stomach for it. And that was a relatively cheap option,
yeah,
putting it in with the stable.
table.
So I think basically what that told me, and maybe I'm wrong, but it just kind of told me that this is going to be really hard to get done. So
That's
Yeah,
fair.
I
Ron.
agree with that. I agree with that statement too. And I think the main way that this would be worth reconsidering it is if it falls out of something from the Prost master plan process of basically saying, hey, for a community this size, you're way under, like the pool availability is far under what it typically is. And here's some survey data that backs that up, that says people are willing to pay for this. And here's when and how they would pay for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's a
think,
good point, Dan.
I think that next year you'll probably see, at least in my opinion, a huge shake in this because if we have the Prost master plan, that'll really start guiding, you know, at least for me, what I think is more important than just talking to neighbors and over the last 5 years or so. So it may have a large shakeup.
I think that it would be super helpful to have the 5-year, 10-year down the road plan of what the demographics are going to look like with all the new development and what we're lacking. And I think that input from the master plan will be really helpful in maybe helping guide us in some of these things that I don't want to say we're short-sighted, but we may be.
No, I think that's fair. Okay.
So with that, do we want to recommend this list to the board as a guide for this year if there is funding for any of these things?
Yes, I believe.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the list as it is on Corey's screen and submit it to the board for PROSTAC's recommendation.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, so any further discussion? I see none, so all those in favor, raise a hand or
you raise your hand. And, yeah, in favor. I don't have my video working, so.
You might need to do a roll call vote.
how do you do that? Oh,
Just call people's name.
Okay. Let's do let me find the list of people so I can run down a list. All right, let's go. All those I guess I just call your name and you say yay or nay. So Corey, yay. Todd?
Yes.
Yes. Alan?
Yes.
John?
Yay.
Is that a nay or a yay?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. Corbett?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
And I think I hit everyone. That's everyone. So all unanimously passes. Okay. Sorry, finding new ways on how to do everything. I'm learning. Okay, with that, then let's jump back to next on here. Just adding in the town board recommendation for the town 15 recommendation to the town board, the 3 bullet points. And you said you sent that out just a second ago, right?
I did send that out to everyone, and then also what we had put in our notes from before. So those 3 bullet points again. Do you have them to pull up, Corey?
Yeah, unless you want to pull it up, I'm looking for them right now.
Okay. I sent it out at I don't know, half hour before the meeting or so.
Yeah, I just have a really messy inbox, so.
They-
It was sent at 6:31, Corey, if that helps.
For me, they go into my junk folder, so I have to look for things there that come to the PROSTAC list. I don't know why.
You have to accept that we're not a junk. Come on
I
now.
know, I have to
Yeah,
figure out how
Todd,
to
how
change
do we-
that.
Todd, can you pull it up? And I'll just. Hold on,
I see the email, but I don't see an attachment.
There's no attachment. It's just in the text of the email.
Maybe that's why. I'm looking for the wrong thing.
Oh yeah, it's just in the text.
There was attachments. It's just not.
Oh, because you said you sent it to a different email.
I accidentally just sent this out. I didn't reply to yours. And it's from a different email address too. So I should have sent it out differently, but I didn't.
I swear I saw it in my email earlier, but I can't find it. Docs for tonight. There it is. Okay.
You got it. Otherwise I can share my screen as well.
I got it. I don't know how I'll be able to. Go ahead, Todd, because you can't read it on my screen.
In the email you can't?
I'm just saying, here's what my screen looks like if you want to try and read that.
Oh, okay. Well, it may be the same here. Let me,
Here, hold on. I got a better idea.
Corey, can you hit just Control plus to just zoom in on the screen?
See what happens here. There we go. Look at that.
Beautiful.
Copy paste. Beautiful thing. Okay, so I may or may not have missed something ahead of this, but it was just the proposed.
no,
bullet.
you're good.
Okay, so the bullet points, and this is for Town 15 overall joint recommendation with OSAC and PROSTAC for guidance if and when anyone would come to Town 15 with a proposal. Correct, Todd?
Correct. Hold on a second. Something just turned on. I got to turn off.
What was that?
Sorry, a fan just turned on. I had to turn it off so I could hear.
So with that, I know we went through these prior. So Todd, you want to lead us through?
Yeah, so the 3 points are that the town should not sell any portion of Town 15 for development to ensure the maximum enjoyment of current and future Superior residents. Point 2, OSAC and PROSTAC agree that careful attention must be paid to Town 15 and that the PROST master plan is a valuable route to evaluate the parcel's optimal community use. And third, Town 15 should be part of a public use recreation and wildlife corridor, which extends from Autry Park to Colton Trailhead. And then below that in the text is just what we had put down a year and a half ago or so as a statement from PROSTAC. So those 3 bullet points are what OSAC has already voted on and said, yes, we're in agreement that they can sign up for that. I'm putting this before us to see if we can do the same thing, and then we can have a joint statement that the board can use as a just a unified thing between the 2 groups.
A guiding light, if anyone will come forth.
Really minor thing, but should there be a "the" in front of town in the first bullet? I don't want to change it if the text has already been blessed, but I'm just asking, like, was that a mistake or was it?
It probably should be there, but I mean, if we want to have something truly joint, I think it probably
Just leave it.
we can leave it as it is if we can. I don't think that really makes any difference, honestly, but
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like a copy and paste error or something.
I don't believe so. I think it is what it was.
The version in the email doesn't have the. So
Yeah.
I was gonna say I copied the proposed bullets and everything below. So, I don't know. For me, this is a unified front from OSAC and PROSTAC to just be a guiding direction for the board. And I think that's really what we're trying to achieve here, because it doesn't say that you can or can't do anything. I think it's more of that it needs to be thought after and really verified with the community, and that we are looking for recreational opportunities within that space and not to overdevelop, if you will.
Has that been discussed though? Should we recommend something, or, you know, put any sort of list together for ideas for what it could potentially be, even if it's just passive recreation?
I think we started there, and that's where we whittled it down to, because if you say, here's some opportunities to put there, then it's like, well, these are the only things in the list. And it's not that intent. It's more of the intent to say, you know, you can put soccer fields there. You can put, I don't know, whatever, court, fields, track, you know, whatever. But it doesn't specify any particular function. And that's where I think the bullet point number 2, the PROS master plan, also evaluates opportunities and amenities and proximities to houses. And so therefore could help us guide everyone in what may be a better fit for that land from a recreation and
Is the assumption though that it will be developed into recreational use and not left open space preservation? Am I understanding that right?
I think it could be anything at this point, and I think the guiding principles are here that it's a recreation and wildlife corridor. So I mean, we're not going to build houses there, and that the PROSTAC, or excuse me, that the PROST master plan should be a guiding, you know, give the guidance for what really needs to be there, what we're missing. It's this large parcel that could be used for a lot of things. And I think until we kind of get down to going through that master plan, I don't think we have maybe even the complete information to say what should be there or what shouldn't be there.
So we'd be waiting for the board to sort of say, okay, we're gonna leave it as open space / recreation use, and then we would come back and sort of try to plan out what it might be.
I think to answer your questions though, is the history of why we wanted to come up with a statement is because there was various proposals brought to the town board, and the town board didn't know exactly how to move forward because it was like, well, here's an opportunity to build a school, and this is just a guiding principle from our committees and our viewpoints of what should be in that space. So it's just a guide to say, you know, here's objection that you would have if somebody brought this. And it also leaves it up for opportunity for something in the future, but it doesn't have to be built. There is no intention to build anything on there right now. And the town board, I don't believe, Neil, you could.
We lost you, Corey.
Lost your audio.
Hey, Corey, we can't hear you. We can't hear you, Corey.
I don't think he can.
Maybe we lost Corey altogether.
Yeah, I think Corey froze.
Okay.
Hey, Alan, so from my perspective, this is something that the town board can take a look at when somebody proposes something to do with Town 15. We already have a pre-planned statement. They look at it and they say, does it fit within those lines? Almost think of it as the PROST, similar to a PROST plan of how our community should be built out. This is a plan for, or at least a recommendation of what PROSTAC and OSAC believe that should be used for Town 15. So they can look at it and say, does this fall within that or not? And it just kind of helps guide them on the next steps.
So there's no action item upcoming for the town board. There's no proposals coming forward. This is sort of a just in case.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, in the sense that if someone comes to us with a proposal, you know, I think we always look to the community in terms of OSAC and PROSTAC. Does this meet what they want to have happen with the space? And when the proposal came a couple of years ago, we didn't have a guiding document or anything specific on what to do with the space.
Okay.
Plus, it also sends a message out there of what the community wants to do with the space. in advance of any potential proposal coming in.
Susan also put some information in the chat for everybody.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about tweaking the language a little bit to make it a little more clear and official sounding.
Well, we put this together as a joint statement. We met with OSAC on this, and we probably should, I don't know if you guys haven't read OSAC's background on this, but it's like, what, 3 or 4 pages
Yeah.
of background. And we try to just sum this up so that, and going back to the other points, it's just kind of like, okay, 3 years from now, when you have a brand new board and you have a new committee here, OSAC and PROSTAC, at least we've got some guiding principles. So somebody can't just walk up and say, hey, I would like to build something here, sell it to me. Then at least we have some documentation to say, this is something we thought of 3 years ago. We might want to keep an eye on it. And then, as other people have said, when all of a sudden somebody says, hey, this would be a great place for X, it was originally designed for a couple of uses, one being a community center was on that corner lot. One was also a gas station. So we've had everything, or a church too. I think there was a church at one point designated for that plot. So this just kind of clarifies things. And again, the verbiage is put together through a combined meeting. So it wasn't like Todd and I just sat down and thought it up. We're trying to meet halfway with OSAC, because obviously OSAC doesn't want anything built there. They'd like to keep it open. So.
And OSAC's already voted on this, right? They've already agreed to this language. So
They have. So Susan, a question on your comment, is there any substantive changes, or is it just a finer version of this that you're putting down?
It's literally just English language tweaks. I'm not suggesting changing the meaning of any of it.
So my suggestion on that would probably be, if we can leave it as it is, if it does mean the same thing as you're suggesting, probably leave it as it is, even if it's not perfect, just because they've already voted on the language as it is.
Okay.
No, I don't want to say we should dumb it down and but it's just, I think, a lot easier.
We should definitely send a message to OSAC, though, that we don't like their grammar skills currently.
Okay. All right.
Send it to the editor before you send it to us.
Yeah, right.
Ron and I will take no responsibility for it. How's that, Ron?
No, I'm just thinking about this making its way into permanent, the part of the permanent record of the town, and trying to have it be as plain as possible for the future
Well,
and whoever might end up looking at it. But
I think we didn't want to get specific, and I mean, the reality of it is someday the town may have to sell that parcel. You just never know. So to just blanketly say don't ever sell it is not, or anything like that. That's what we try to be a little vague and a little defined as well. I don't know if we succeeded or not. I guess you guys can tell us. So
it says don't sell it in point 1, so that seems pretty specific to me.
yeah, I like the word should, because from what I'm used to, should means make every best effort. Shall means you shall not. So I like the way it's written.
so with that, can we make a recommendation for this to the town board that we all can stand behind?
Can we at least spell Colton correctly in point 3?
I will back that up 100%.
I would agree with that as well.
Thank you.
yeah, that's a typo. Yeah.
Good catch.
Now there's a red line under it. All right. So with that, is there any motion, or how about I put forth? I'll put forth that I motion that we. I don't even know how to say this. I motion that we approve the joint recommendation with OSAC for the Town 15 guiding statement.
I will second that, Corey.
Okay. Discussion, additional. And if there's no additional discussion, we'll move to a vote. And I will read the names again. And so Dan, yay or nay?
I would actually like to abstain because my house backs to the lot, and I've been vocal on this issue, so I'd like to just abstain from voting.
Okay. Corbett,
Absolutely yay.
and then Susan,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Corey, yes. So I got, is that right? Did I run out of fingers? 6, 7, I had 7. 7 yays and 1 abstain. Right? Did I hit everyone?
Yeah, that's right. Sarah's missing, so that'd be 9.
Okay, so motion passes. And let's move on to the next component, which would be trail rankings. And so just go with trail rankings here. See, I didn't organize them, so filter largest to smallest. I'm going to get rid of the rest of the view on here because once you filter it, the rankings on the right of all the people don't follow for some reason on mine. But with that, there we go. Everyone see that? So if we
No.
filter the numbers and then they're in the high, should be done soon, high group, it seems like our first, 10 out of 20 have the majority of the high group as well as,
Corey, are you
sorry.
sharing my screen?
Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, I'm just seeing the bullet points still.
oh,
There we go.
good. Did you miss me fumbling around with the graph then? Perfect. Sorry, I paused when I was trying to make sure I knew what was coming up next. All right, so back to bullet point. So item trail rankings, review the trails, and then also, and I put this down there, but I didn't pull it up. So I want to add this to the discussion as the crusher find adjacent trail possibilities and some of the work Dan's done that we at least discuss that as well. So I think that's really good stuff. So back to the trail rankings, this one. You know what? Can you open a document twice? Huh. Hold on. Let me do something real quick. These trails. So let's do this. Okay, sorry, bear with me. Let's try that one more time. Because I'll just testing out my skills here, aren't you? There we go. Okay. Okay, now we can have a conversation. So trail number 1 rose to the top as the number 1 priority. Look at that. Let me see. Gotta zoom out just a little bit more. Can you guys all still see that?
It's good for me.
Fabulous. Good enough then. It appears that trail number 1, which is up here, the Davidson Mesa connection, a county priority, is number 1 on our list, and it looks like we all rank that extremely high. Trail 10 appears to be another one, and that one is currently today a construction trail that I've used several times, just FYI. because there is new development in here, and there is like trash bins and stuff right there, and there's a bunch of crusher that you can kind of go through. Trail 13 is the next highest one, which is going to be in part of the development of the lanterns, I believe, up to at least the, what's the easement called again?
Tract H.
Yeah. So, I don't want to see. Is there any that anyone's seeing that are jumping out as major surprises? But you know, so really, we got number 1 in there, 2 and 3 in town center, 5 being trail, Coal Creek Trail up to McCaslin, and that one is through Original Town. And then 14 being the Zaharias property, and 9 being a connection in town center. So lots of
I think I'd say again, the number 12 to me is one of the highest priorities, and is a good candidate for, you know, I think board members have talked in the past about a temporary trail. Like if we could get some kind of connectivity to Tract H from the existing, like if we could carve out any part of that area, even get something worked out with the developer where we could have a temporary trail there, I think that could be really useful. Because there's not very good connectivity right now between
I have seen many people make it to the end of Tract H and look around, scratch their head, and turn around and come back. And then I found myself turning on 10 because there's a way out without going all the way back where I came from. But again, 10 is not even, it's more kind of going through some construction zone, but it could easily be turned into a temporary trail that could provide access even while they're doing construction. 12 is, I agree, for connectivity to the neighborhood. Just not sure where they stand with some of the construction out there, and haven't kind of ventured into that area. Any other thoughts from the group on that?
Nothing too shocking is jumping out, I don't think.
There are a few, just as you continue to look at them, Todd, and you know, into future, like Trail 8 was surprising to me because I believe Trail 8 is actually complete now. Because it is right along the creek, and it's all the concrete, and it's a beautiful trail. Can't wait for the trees to grow back and get a little taller, but the trail is amazing, and the water flow in there is really cool if you go down in that area.
So yeah, I think I was confused about why that was on there, and I was wondering if we were planning on some improvements like pressure fine side trailer, if there was something still planned there, because if there was any kind of change that we were going to make, then it would be a high priority. And if it's not, if we're not going to change anything, then it probably shouldn't be on this list, right?
Right, and I know that there was some additional trails in the parks, but it all depended on which park layout was finalized. And I know that the when they did the Rock Creek, what do they call it, redoing the riverbed, the creek bed, there was some Corps of Engineer requirements to make some modifications. So I'm not sure if the Parks 1 and 2 final trails match up to that latest revisions.
So when I did the ranking, I assumed it was additional things that would happen with Parks 1 and 2, not the existing trail.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, me too.
So to me, this goes back to kind of what we talked about on the amenities list, that sometimes it gets confusing on what we're talking about and whether something is there or we're going to improve it. Like I'll say for like trail number 14 for me, it's important because we should definitely keep our eye on whatever happens in the Zaharias area, but it's not something that we would be, in my opinion, that we would be doing today until we figure out what we're going to do with that area. So it's important to ensure that something is there if something happens there, but if nothing happens there, it wouldn't be high on my list. So, how do you weigh that?
Well, and to me, that comes back to the number one trail on here is a county issue that we can't really control, but we think it's a safety issue, and it's been a safety concern for the committee for.
I think we lost you again, Corey.
He may be practicing his miming.
I think he is, yeah. Okay, there he is. Can you talk, Corey? Can we hear you?
Nope.
Okay, we got you back.
I'm in the bubble where we don't get reception, so, Any other thoughts?
I was also a little confused about the ranking of the county, the trails that involve the county, because I thought I saw instructions on that directions tab about there was like agreement not to rank those. Where is that? Like we agreed.
It said don't put them in your top 3.
15.
Yeah.
We agreed with PROSTAC that we would not rank any of the county trails. Does that mean that we just wouldn't put them in our top 3 or just we wouldn't rank them at all? I was confused.
Yeah, I understood that as part of the top 3.
Okay.
The problem is that you had to click on that field and then expand it down, and you could see the extra language in there, which said don't put in the top 3.
Huh. I guess I didn't do that. I don't know. Can't figure out how to get it on.
Well, then I guess the question is, does this materially change the overall rankings? Does anyone have strong feelings about moving something up or down?
Well, I don't think that trail number 1, Corey, can you scroll to the right on that one just slightly for high group? Is trail number 1 0 or empty?
0. No one said it was a high priority.
Right, because that was part of the instructions, I think. So, I mean, yeah, so I guess Susan's question is, if we're giving, yeah, I don't know, sorry. I don't know the answer to her question.
It looks like there's just 2 votes that would go out, right? The 76th Street, there's 1 high group vote that would go out, and AJ, trail number 2, there's another one. So I don't think it would materially affect the high group rankings, right?
Well, and Todd, you have to help me out here, but I know that we discussed at one point leaving the county trails as a separate list because they're the county trails that go to Boulder County, and you'd still rank those as these are the high priorities from Town of Superior to the Boulder County recommendations, which is the September timeframe that we do the Boulder County recommendations.
Yeah, so we decided to put the whole list together as one list rather than have 2 lists. And so whether that's the right answer or not, or if we should pull those, do the ranking like this, but then pull them into 2 separately ranked things, I don't know what the right answer is. Because obviously we don't have, the ability to control those green ones. So when we went through this, the decision was made to put them all together, and now, I don't know. Good decision, bad decision, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you just have to view it as, in terms of feasibility and what we can act on, you're looking at yellow only. Right? I mean.
Well, we can certainly influence that. I'm sure the city could have significant influence on that if we wanted to put money towards it.
Right.
Yeah, but we still have to propose it to Boulder County, and Boulder County would have to agree with us to
Yep.
do it. Because that's what we've had problems with in the past is we think it's important. We even said we'd put seed money toward trails, and Boulder County said, no, I don't want to do anything with that area. So essentially, that's your list. If you go back and just take out, you know, you just take out Boulder County, you get the top, oops, right? Maybe the last thing. Oh, it's counting my hidden cells too. Anyway, I think that it could easily be broken apart, or it could easily stay combined, and the intent is still there. Of these are important trails, and yellow is if the town has finances and ability to influence even temporary connections, and we can work with a developer or whoever, these would be the ones that we would think would be first priority. And then if we have ability to work with the Boulder County, this would be the order of priority for those. So.
One other thing that was kind of hard to capture in this ranking was 11, 12, and 13 are all kind of interrelated. And so like individually, you might say one has a lower priority, but if we find out for whatever reason that 2 of the 3 couldn't be built, that would make the last one very important, you know? So that was kind of hard to include in the ranking, but.
I felt the same way, Dan, and I think you see sort of similar with 2 and 4. They both kind of get you access to the same place. 4 gets you a little more access, you know, to and from a park, but still similar.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was like you. I didn't really know how to prioritize those because, I mean, kind of all depends on where you're coming from or where you're going.
And for me, 2 is a new trail on new property that would be in Boulder County. 4 is an existing road bed that there is a shoulder on, and it'd just be upgrading the roadway to actually identify a trail connection. So there's a couple differences in those, but again, both of them are kind of in Boulder County jurisdiction.
Just a little historical perspective on this list. Again, this is a list that we think stuff needs to be built. Doesn't worry about money, long-term, short-term. We used to go into very serious detail and have a second sheet which would price these out.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of they stopped doing that a few years ago because it was just impossible to figure out with the changing structure of how much it's going to cost. So I would just advocate that we make sure we continue to do the ones that we think need to be built, whether they're county or town. We just have to make sure we keep this in front of the town board just in case the money shows up, just in case there's a change of heart for various things that could possibly happen. And I think the level 3 property is probably a great example. That absolutely came out of nowhere. So, but because, you know, it happened, it's always good to have this stuff organized. And that's why it's nice to have 9 separate voices on this particular, whether it's amenities or this, because you've got different people with different thoughts, and you're just trying to get a summation. And then what happens is the board's going to say, hey, look, we got $100,000. Let's do something. So that's kind of just a push the historical perspective on this, on why we have always kept county with town together. But splitting them out wouldn't hurt, because this is going to help you when you have to send your county list to the county. So that's just some historical perspective on it.
So Ron, you brought up the level 3 or CenturyLink property purchase of the town. Does that add anything on here that we're missing that should be here? Now that that's going to be the town's property?
I'd pass it over to the bikers who go up there
Every day.
I think this is something I'd like to discuss in the context of the fine Crusher Fine trail, like if we could come up with a way that you could get to that property and the trails that are already out there with, by adding Crusher Fine along existing trails, I think that could be pretty interesting.
So I have one other comment I just wanted to throw out. We spent 25 on the list as the Coyote Ridge connection from Pirate Park. We spent a lot of time on Coyote Ridge in the last few years, and there was some opportunities for trail cleanup and improvements and things like that. And, I know that there's a lot of the social trail up here, but that's kind of now, if that is all part of Superior space and Boulder County open space, what is the trail connectivities up there? So I think that there's a little bit of connection now with that, and there isn't anything on the list that really addresses anything up there.
By the way, Corey, are 24 and 25 flipped? Shouldn't 24 be the Pirate Park connection?
Yeah, I caught that too.
Oh yeah, sorry. I just, yeah, it looks that way. Coyote Ridge connection in Pirate Park and Coyote Ridge trail maintenance.
So I ranked it by what it was called, not by the number on the map. I don't know what other people did.
I think I ranked it by what it was called too.
I did it by the name, not by the ranking or by the number.
Yeah, I did it by the description.
So I just wanted to point that out just in the context of if that is now space that, we could maintain or control or modify. There is a lot of connections out there. And, there could be other opportunities for connections. And then just one other one I wanted to point out was this one was very confusing to me. 21, 22, and 23, and which piece was which. And they all kind of ended up in the same 21, 22, and 23 just fell a little bit lower because that one's kind of like, I think it's already built. So.
Sorry I'm late.
It's okay. Good to see you.
Hey, so Corey, tie in this to our amenities list. We had high in the amenities list the top 3 trails on this. So that would be 10, 13, and 5. Just want to kind of have a little discussion. Are we comfortable with 10, 13, and 5 as the top 3 since it ties to the amenities?
I don't know. I'll ask the group.
What's the question? How does it tie to the amenities list?
Are we comfortable with those top 3 since we have high on the amenities list that we should go after the top 3 trails? I just want to make sure that because we have them tied, that we at least consider that those are the top 3, and we do agree that those are still high on the amenities list.
So my question on that would be, I guess, should number 1 in the county, that Davidson Mesa underpass connection, is that really what we want to be in the top 3, or is it the top 3 of the town only trails?
Yeah, I think if we go back to Ron's historical explanation of what this is, then we would lump that one back in, right?
I would think so since everybody voted on it so high.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've been talking about that. I know we've been talking about that for like 5-6 years because of the safety issue that's over there.
Yeah. To me, if those are the top 3, if it's the Davidson Mason connection and 10 and 13, those are all high priorities, and I'd love to see them get done as soon as possible.
Yeah, I would agree. I think those 3, especially those 3 are huge. Especially at that 13 and 10, those 2 are something to get done.
Yeah, I agree with those 3 as our top 3, not the Town of Superior 3 that way we showed before.
I agree also.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Okay. So, okay.
And just to follow up on your thought on the new level 3 property, I think it's going to be very important for this committee over the next year to map out potential opportunities up there. And I don't know where you start doing that, but there's definitely some definitely new potential up there. I don't know. Just FYI, my opinion.
There's a lot of great trails up there today.
Yeah, but it'd be nice for this committee to organize it and put it together, because I guarantee you open space is going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ron's right. I mean, obviously, the board caught everybody off guard with buying this just a few weeks ago, and now that we have it, how does it reorganize the prioritization?
I would also say wait till the finalized purchase. Then
Well, and also I recall when we spent a lot of time talking about Coyote Ridge improvements, there was lots of questions about don't widen, or there was public comment, don't widen the trails. We love the single track and those type of comments. And if you're out there now, you can tell with the amount of traffic that it's received in the last 2 months that it's no longer always a single track out there. There's a lot of dual trails because of it.
Yeah, the social distancing is creating, a lot of secondary auxiliary trails all over.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So with this, I guess the question is, do we feel comfortable recommending these trails with these numbers? But I do want to come back around, and I'd love Dan, if you could go through some of the crusher fine, because I think it's almost another trail that we haven't talked about on this list because it hasn't been truly identified. And Dan did a lot of work on that Google Doc, and it's almost like trail maintenance and trail improvement on existing trails versus looking at this list. To me, is all interconnectivities and where we may or may not have something, except for a couple. I just pointing it out, 19 over here was one that we said, replace the social trails. And, as we get into mix of trails, I think that's one of the things that's really nice about that area in Community Park is that you can ride a single track, a crusher fine, or a sidewalk, or run on either one of those three. And I think that's where we're going with some of this crusher fine along the edge of concrete to make sure we have a good variety and allow people, for runners, a softer path. So Dan, I don't know if do you want to run through that, or do we want to make a motion for this trails and then go through the crusher fine? What's the thought there? Anyone? Todd? How do you want to guide it?
It's like we should maybe do them separately because, as you pointed out, Dan's proposals are enhancements in many cases versus new trails or things that just don't exist.
I think Dan's would be another list or pieces to add onto this, but we just don't have enough development of it yet. And this is something that still is a recommendation of trails that I think could be taken as a recommendation at this point. So can we wrap this one up? Is there a recommendation for this? Is people comfortable with this ranking and kind of movement of trails? And I know I kind of broke it apart and then we put it back together. So it's got both up here and just which way we want to present that to the board as a recommendation of trails.
Are you meeting with OSAC first, or are you just sending this in?
Why, Todd, did OSAC already vote on these and have a recommendation that we can go back and just look at how they combine after?
The reason I was asking, Corey, is usually we go through this and then come back. You don't usually see the results and then send a recommendation because people may, we may want to add stuff to it. I'm just saying, usually it's a two meeting process. We lose everybody.
Todd, you're on mute.
I believe the list of trails is combined and we're one. As far as the rankings, I don't know exactly where they're at.
But Todd, wasn't a thought that we were going to get together with them on this before we send it to the board?
Honestly, Ron, I don't remember what that. It's been a couple months since we met with those guys, and I don't remember where we left that.
Well, and I thought we were behind on trail and amenities rankings, and I just want to make sure we,
Yeah.
as a group, have our trail recommendations, and then we can take our trail recommendations and work with and coordinate with OSAC. But if we don't agree as a group on this list, it's hard to coordinate with OSAC because otherwise it'll be the back and forth as it always is with OSAC to try and finalize the trail alignment.
Okay, just bringing up the
And I
those
think in the
technicalities.
years past, we had our rank, they had their rank, and then we put the two ranks together and see how they stack out with the combined rankings.
Yeah. So the goal initially this year was to put and make sure that we had the trails all the same, which I believe we do at this point. So we're gonna definitely have different rankings than those guys.
But we have consistent identification. Is that what you mean, Todd?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, I think to Ron's point though, is that in the previous years, we always, shoot, maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I can't remember, town asked that we could submit a combined ranking with OSAC, right? And, where some of our stuff that was lower on the list ended up getting pushed higher, and some of their stuff that was high got pushed lower, and vice versa. So I think the question is are we intending to have two different lists this year? I know what Corey was saying is that at least we want to have our list ready to go, but do we want to do any coordination to try to combine the list if it makes sense?
In years past, it was after we had a ranking that we took it and combined it with OSAC's ranking and then combined and said our X numbers and their X numbers, and this is how they stack together. Because we both have 9 voting members, and therefore you get certain numbers on the trails, and then those numbers tie to their numbers, and then you kind of work its way in of which ones are ranked highest.
So what's the motion that you're looking for here then, Corey? It's not to send to the board, it's just a motion to approve.
I'm thinking more approval of the ranking that our group is comfortable with, but if we don't need to, and we're going to go back another round with Todd, if I just don't know exactly where we stand with OSAC and going another round, I just don't want to push it out too long.
Yeah. At this point, I don't think it hurts necessarily to push out voting on this until June. I don't think we're in the way of anything if we do that.
Okay.
So why don't we just go ahead and do that, and I'll talk to those guys and see if there's anything else we need to do first. And then we can go from there next month.
Perfect. And then actually, and I believe I had almost everyone's, I think I may have missed 1 or 2 rankings of people. And so actually it works well to give us a little bit more time to recompile if anyone does, if anyone missed incorporating those numbers in. Right? Because I don't know if I had everyone respond. Yeah, I missed John and Sarah, unless I missed it in my inbox somewhere.
I don't think I ever got this. Who sent it out?
I sent it out a couple of times.
Okay, I'll look back.
Okay.
But check your spam folder. That's where it keeps landing for me.
Oh, I'm glad you guys like my spam.
Sorry. It's not you, it's mine.
Okay. So let's keep moving forward though. So we're gonna hold on this. We have it somewhat ranked. We'll wait until June and finalize that, and hopefully at that point, Todd, when you meet with OSAC, we can figure out and make sure we understand how to do a combined ranking. I just thought OSAC had done their ranking, and therefore I wanted to try and push to make sure we have our ranking and then can combine them. So we can have that discussion.
Do we want to just move, since it's on the amenities list, like Corbett said, to just move that these top 3 are our specific top 3? Not necessarily.
I did put that in our meeting notes.
Okay.
That might be good enough.
Yeah, I think that's good for now. Okay, with that, Dan, do you want to touch base on the crusher fine doc and just kind of give us a quick overview of that and at least have the
Sure.
discussion?
Do you want me to present, or I could also just drop the link in chat to?
Oh, I'd love to have you present.
Okay. Not sure how to do that.
I'm learning how to give up control. That's what my office tells me anyway. There's a little green button at the middle bottom and you can share.
Yeah. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yep, it's up.
Okay. So yeah, what I was just trying to do was, I think I talked before about, are there places where we could pretty easily add crusher fine along the side of trails? And like one of the first ones I had in mind was this one along McCaslin Boulevard. But when I ran it, I started to notice all these spots that trees were pretty close to the trail. And I was seeing that on both sides, that either the roots were really close, or there was a lot of overhang like that. There's not really a lot of room there. So if we were going to do crusher fine there, it would probably need to be like quite a ways away from the current trail, or it would have to kind of disappear around trees in quite a few spots. And so I used this as an excuse for why I could run slowly, and I kept stopping and taking pictures on my phone every place I saw that there'd be something that we needed to do. But one of the things I had in mind was, could we come up with a way to get all the way from, the new Superior downtown area all the way to, the new areas that we're going to have up on level 3 CenturyLink property, all on Crusher Fine Trail, just giving runners an option to get there through town on Crusher Fine instead of on hard trails. And so I didn't come up with anything I thought was a great solution so far, but the best one I found was kind of this path here that's highlighted. And I was experimenting with, would there be a possibility to go back here and go underneath a bridge, but it looked like there were quite a few obstructions here along Rock Creek Parkway that we'd have to deal with. So I thought that one might be a little bit harder to at least do the connection from here over. But I thought in general, there's not a whole lot of obstruction, kind of like for this part of the path through town. And then the space along the sidewalk, I don't know exactly what we can and can't do there, but from a space perspective, it seemed to me that there would be enough space to put a path right along the sidewalk here along Colton too, and then make that connect into the trail system that we've got here. And there were relatively few obstructions to deal with, in this area too. Another thing I noticed was that in a lot of places, the picnic tables were really close, and like the trash cans, those were pretty close to the trail right now. But I'm assuming those are probably not insanely difficult to move, hopefully, if that's where it made the most sense. So I haven't extensively tried to map out any other routes. I liked this one because it used the bridge under Rock Creek Parkway. So, maybe brainstorming other connections through this bridge might be interesting. You really notice the fact that this trail is missing. And, we've talked before about how this would be a really difficult one to add. But it would be great if we had some way to get across Colton here. And I guess, we could maybe try to tie in with this trail, but that has some challenges around here as well. So I didn't find what I thought was a great solution, but this is about the best I could come up with.
Well, and I would throw in that, there is a really great crusher fine all along McCaslin, to the Colton trailhead, to the left, right along McCaslin is,
Yeah.
Right here.
yeah, there. Sorry, there was a delay. Yeah.
That starts like right about here, I think, right?
Yep. Yeah. And then that's Crusher Fine over from there over to the school as well. At the top.
And then you can go under Colton there. Just, yeah, right around there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's another opportunity for Crusher Fine on both sides, east and west of the community.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't try to really map that out, but that might be another good option.
And then when you hit the new development there, that's all concrete, and there's actually one of the few places that there's bollard lights at night in the evenings when you're walking the streets.
So that's really all I have. And I shared this map with everybody. I think you should have the option if you want to like try to sketch her out yourself and, you know, take some pictures about what obstructions would be there and come up with other ideas. I think you should have the permission to edit this map and add new layers and new pictures. The way I put these pictures on here, it works pretty slick. You can just import a Google photo album. So if you upload your photos from your phone with geotags on them, and then just import the album, Google will just put them all in the pretty close to the right spot. Sometimes you have to correct them a little bit, but it makes that part pretty easy.
I like the fact that I can go for a run and have an excuse to go really slow and take lots of pictures. So
yeah, it worked well for me too.
So how do we want to go forward with this? Do we want to make it a sort of separate project that Dan and all his willingness leads up? How do we want to go about driving this to some conclusion, or do we not?
It's a good question. I didn't have a specific, I mean, for me, it was mostly curiosity that I wanted to try to figure out for myself, could we do this? And, you know, like I said, I think we can. I don't see a slam dunk option. I kind of like what you just brought up about, you know, this connection. I think this is probably worth exploring to see if there'd be another option here. I think there are some other, you know, potential trail options we could look at down in this region, maybe that connected through to this side of the bridge. So I'm mostly looking for other people with ideas that are interested in this project that might want to help. If there is anybody that would be great. If not, I'll probably keep whittling away on this as I have time or want to work on it.
To me, it comes down to, I think this is a great, not only where's the opportunity for crushers, and if you go over to Founders, you can see that there's the concrete sidewalk with a crusher path adjacent to it around the park. And it's a supplemental piece to the fact of new trails that are missing links. And therefore, to me, it's kind of its own standalone document and standalone maintenance and potential upgrades to the trail, or at least until you kind of get these are good locations. And I think this one should be a trail that we should add to the trail map and trail list.
Yeah, where I would see this being beneficial would be if we could kind of all come to an agreement that here are all the different options to get from north to south on a new Crusher Fine side trail, and here's what we think is the best option collectively.
So just the perspective, my perspective, because one among 7 on the board, you know, I think there's a number of runners on the board and we really like Crusher Fine, and the absence of Crusher Fine trails in town is definitely, you know, noticed. The town of Louisville, or city of Louisville, they just put a transportation document together and they talk about, you know, fun routes to school where they've plowed a dirt path next to a concrete path to, you know, use a mountain bike to get to school. And if anybody's been on the Coal Creek Trail as it empties out into Louisville, there's some fairly extensive crusher fines augmenting the concrete trail networks. So I think this is a fantastic piece of work to move forward. And one of the things that ACES is working on is looking at the town's green space and seeing, can we get rid of some of it? We spend a significant amount of money maintaining a lot of grass in difficult to maintain areas, whether it's roadway medians or even steep trail. So, or steep grade, so that's not necessarily good for crusher fine, but in terms of ultimately removing some of the grass space from the town, it's potentially a mutually inclusive goal of, pulling it out and put it in a crusher fine. So, to the degree that this meets needs that, board members themselves, people in town, definitely want to see as an amenity, and then also helps to, decrease our heavily manicured lawn footprint. I think it's going to be fantastic.
What I would love to see with this, and I don't know if we would be able to do it or not, but I would almost love to see us challenge the other advisory boards and even, the constituents of the town to say, hey, we would love for people to propose different ways that one could get from the north to the south or south to the north, where we could minimize and add crusher fine and just do crusher fine all the way. And then collect all those ideas, and Dan with a small team could lead and evaluate those and propose something that we would be able to kind of look at holistically, but it would be hugely beneficial if we could bring in all the other advisory boards and as many people of the town that are willing to do it, since everybody's out looking out there. It'd be, I don't know, a fun challenge.
And the one thing I would add is also think about east to west. As we think about Autry Park now with the skate park, the future pickleball courts, the dog park, it's becoming a much more robust neck of the woods with more activities to do. If we can find ways to connect the Colton Trailhead out to Autry Park on a continuous crusher fine, I think that again adds to exactly what Corbett was talking about. Let's crowdsource this to find the best trails, but not just think about north to south, but also east to west.
And
Yeah, I think east to west is potentially easier because this is a pretty optimal route here because you got the bridge and there's not a lot of obstruction in this area. You would have to cross Indiana. I don't see probably a way around that.
But I would also throw in that when we do the US 36 bikeway improvement in that area, that we make sure that they don't just replace the crusher fine with concrete, and that there is a crusher fine and concrete trail. Because I love that connection through Autry to the 36 bikeway over there. It's the one little spot of crusher before you get on the bikeway.
I like the idea though, Corbett, of going to the community. I'm wondering, I could just throw this out on Superior Community Facebook and see if anyone has other ideas or wants to contribute.
Is it worth giving specific goals? Like we want to, look to get from here to here and give some of those, or just a general north, south, east, west?
I don't know. Like I said, my main thought was north south, especially given that we've got, this beautiful piece of open space that's just coming available to us on the south end. So getting more access to that, I think would be a good thing. And also, given the COVID situation, if we can use this as a way to widen trails, I think that will be beneficial for everybody too. So I guess in terms of follow-up, I could definitely post this on Superior Community and just say, ProStac's looking for feedback. If anyone wants to help contribute to this, or has specific ideas about what we could add, or where other trail alignment could be.
So just throw it out as a general crusher fine augmentation idea project.
Yeah.
I like the idea, just say, hey, while you guys are out making your rounds in general, just start thinking about this and, what would make sense and what would be the easiest way to get from one area to the other area. I do like Neil's suggestion of north, south, east, west, to provide access in the town. And then I would even throw in there, how do we do this by using existing crusher fines as much as possible?
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I can do a post like that before the next meeting. And I just say, if anyone else wants to contribute to this, let me know if you have any problems accessing it or have any questions about how to add a layer or anything.
Okay,
But I don't have anything else specific to talk about with this.
perfect. Okay, so then at this point, I'm gonna go back to this and screen. Okay, so at this point, we've gone through the amenities, the Town 15 recommendation, the trail rankings, and a discussion of the crusher find project, we could call it. With a 8:45, and we got a few items left on the list, I would just say that budget recommendations, I know that we've put forth the amenities and the trail rankings and talked about some of those budget recommendations. Neil, I guess I'd have to verify when, the town would need that recommendation from us. I think we could continue to talk about, the top X number of components out of here of what would be high importance to put on the budget recommendations for next year. But if we have time, I'd like to try and push that to maybe next month.
Yeah, I actually don't have a good handle on the budget cycle. I don't know if Leslie does.
I did get a document on that, and I don't have it committed to memory, but my recollection is the month of June is kind of, I think we need to have recommendations in by like June 12th. Is that possible?
That doesn't sound good from our standpoint.
No, let me go back and look at my email real quick and
I thought it was a little bit later than that.
yeah, I think that's just the kickoff.
Yeah, because I thought it was always solidified by like August. That way it's kind of rolls into the budget recommendations that are kind of finalized in November timeframe to prepare for the following year. But like I said, I can't remember exactly when those recommendations start compared to when they finish.
Committees have finalized by July. I can tell you that right now. If you got anything you want to get for the 2021 budget, you got to have it done by July meeting so they can go to the board for August when they have their preliminary or their last phase going forward with the budget. But I don't know how bad this COVID-19 is done with budgeting. So
Yeah.
So if next month we go through this, does that give us enough time then to vote on things in July and get that to the board? Seems like it does. Especially because they're going to largely track with the amenities and things that we already have.
Well, and I guess that's where I'd say that if we have the final amenities, if we finalize trail rankings next month, and then just everyone think about what budget recommendations, or even if you have a particular trail or amenity that you really want to try and say, hey, can this one? It's a cheaper one. It's something that maybe we can get in the budget. Can this be a recommendation from the group? And if the group agrees, we could put that forth.
I think the main thing I would suggest is, and I don't know what it would cost, so I'm not sure if we should try to figure that out before we put it on the budget, but temporary trail connections to the town center. In terms of, because what I would say is like for amenities and stuff, I'd rather see that come out of the master plan process, and I don't think we'll be far enough yet. So I think my personal opinion is our budget recommendation should be about what are things that we don't need to wait for the master plan for. And one of those is we don't have very good connectivity to town center, and we could probably help that with some temporary trails. So I don't know if there's legwork we need to do to figure out how much that would be in terms of budget, like what we're asking for, but that would be if there is, then that's what I think we should do between now and
Well,
July.
and I guess years ago, Ron, you stated it that we had a lot of budget pieces within the recommendations of trails and amenities, and we took that out because we were always not 100% sure what that budget was. And to an extent, we're always advisory to the amenities and parks, recreation, open space trails. And therefore, the board has the final determination on if they can afford it, whether it works within the budget, and what that final number is.
Mhm. Another thing we could budget for is we could just ask for some budget for crusher fine side trails. And then whatever amount of budget we get, we could determine how much, just take, 1/3 of whatever we think is the highest priority and try to build that in 2020.
Yep.
The budget calendar has the board working on having work sessions in September and then approval to the board in October. So
We have to have our recommendations in August, at least.
at least, yes.
And Dan, I wouldn't get bogged down by money. You got an idea like that, push it. And I agree. I mean, I would agree with that. I think that's a great use. The other one that's always come up is the new Auchner Roche trailhead. What are we going to put there? Something should go. Some amenity needs to go there.
Yeah,
Whether it's a shelter or a bathroom or a whatever, even just bike, chain your bike up. So.
yeah, and Ron's right. I mean, I think that came up last year. OSAC made the pitch to add some amenities there, but at least the board's appetite then was, let's see how well it gets used and then decide what amenities might make sense there. I think there's going to be the standard sort of question mark with respect to prioritization of that trailhead over everything else, and how that gets done is TBD. But Ron's right. I mean, it's an already popular trailhead.
Mm-hmm. It's because no one else fits in the Colton trailhead anymore. They park
Nope,
in
it's full.
the expansion space. I saw 12 cars in the expansion space on Saturday.
Socially distanced, of course.
Just remember, the board can always say no, but if they don't know about it, they can't say yes. So simple as that.
Well,
I think Dan's idea about
Steve-
the crusher fine, I mean, if that's something on the radar, and we've got some rules of thumb on how many dollars a foot costs, that'll give us a lot of discretion on hey, if we have $10,000, here's how many feet of crusher fine we can get, and here's how PROSTAC is prioritized where to start laying that down.
Yeah, and also with the economic conditions, you never know. You might be able to cover more lineal distance now than you might have in a high economy.
Asphalt pricing has come down quite a bit.
Okay, well, with that, let's. I want to move on. Basically, have 3 bullet points left here. Wanted to talk about next steps on the PROST master plan, because I think it's a critical step that we make sure we're getting going on that. And then I guess just quickly, the last 3 bullet points on here are kind of updates, and we could probably do the trail etiquette as a final kind of piece. But with the PROST master plan, Leslie, do you have pieces that we can go over? I know that you sent me an email and I didn't read it all just before this.
So just to catch everybody up, we did select
Where's that?
Pros Consulting.
I mean, yeah, was this the one?
Yeah, and this is their project plan that this is just a draft. They would like to have a kickoff meeting next week, next Friday, with the project team. And so I need help kind of developing that project team. Obviously, we have staff who are going to be on there, but if we wanted to have representation from PROSTAC and potentially OSAC, that's an item for discussion. If you want to think about a subcommittee that would kind of be a working group for the PROST master plan, or we can just have that be a regular part of your monthly meetings as well. So there's a couple different ways we can approach that, but I wanted to get this project plan out in front of you just so you could see the timeline and the different steps they have proposed. There's some edits that still need to be done here. This is just kind of a starting place.
Hey, Corey, was that your screen that was just up? Can you put that back up?
You're mute.
I have network stability issues, so I'm like hearing some of the conversation. That's why I was trying to stop showing so much. So here, hold on. That was, I believe it was the email that was sent out earlier today. Is that the one?
Yeah, I think I just sent it to you, Corey, though.
Okay.
And I can send that. Definitely get that out to the group so you have time to digest the content of that and the timeline and how the different components, which pieces of those you might be more interested in than others. So.
So can you see that?
Yep, it's up.
So this one's the Superior Prost Master Plan project plan draft with some comments. So I haven't had enough time to go through it all, but basically project objectives, project team looking at it. Leslie, I guess you could probably go over this better than I could.
And really, I've just started to go through it myself and making a few little comments here and there. This is really a basic template for a master plan, and trying to go through and pick out items that we think really are more important or areas that maybe are less important to us, so we can focus the priorities of how we move through this. But basically, the kickoff would be next week, and the wrap up is like mid-November, going to the board in December. So that's very broad stroke timeline.
Is there a specific time for that meeting next week, Leslie?
Not yet, just Friday is what they're targeting, but I don't have a time yet.
Could you keep me in the loop on that? I'd like to attend.
Sure, absolutely.
It seems like if we could select a few people that might be able to attend and kind of keep up with the, if there's issues that Leslie could reach out to a couple of us and have a conversation, and then still bring everyone up to speed on the monthly call to help move things along. And just that way, there's also more of a, as we get to the monthly meeting, it's a report from the staff as well as from a smaller group of things that have happened in the last 3 weeks, month, and how that's moving forward.
So I would be interested in being on that group.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind being on that group as well.
But that way, at least there's a smaller group to just be engaged and still keep the process going. Just looking at that first timeline and saying the first meeting is next week, and then they want to have, discussions, and, if there's any questions or anything, it'd be a small group discussion. Keep that process moving.
And I will say that the work that this group has done and the other committees, the amenities, the trail priorities, all those things are really going to jumpstart this process. A lot of communities go into this somewhat cold turkey and having to, go through that process from ground zero. So I think they're going to be very pleased to see that a lot of the groundwork is already done. So.
And also, there's things like we had it's an older document, but at least, as you said, it's something to jumpstart the project. But the park assessment, that was from 2014, 20 something, 2015, somewhere in there.
And that's one of the things that I'm working on, and Allison has been helping me quite a bit, is kind of a data dump to the group so that they have some of that documentation from historic, community engagement, community input.
Perfect. So this is
It's on our PROSTAC Dropbox right now.
This is in the committee Dropbox. No, did I put it in there?
I'm just searching for it. I'm not finding it.
Okay.
No, I just realized I don't have my.
So I'm not sure that we're all using the same Dropbox, because the committees have a Dropbox that the town set up, and then I think is there a different one that PROSTAC had out there? I don't know. I'm gonna have to find out.
It was set up by staff, so I don't know.
Okay.
Hey, Leslie, I will give you a call this next week, and maybe we can sort through what that is and figure out how this is all working, because it seems like there's some things that are kind of a mess, and we need to reorganize one of the drop boxes anyway that I have access to.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. But I will definitely get this up and send the link out to everybody in the Dropbox I have access to right now. So you can kind of take some time and look through it. And some things may make a lot of sense, and some things would be like, this is not a high priority for Superior, and we can go through and make notes on all those areas.
Yeah, this is great. I'd like to review it offline outside meeting. So whenever you can send a link to it.
You don't like my scrolling speed?
And then
you didn't know you were supposed to be taking notes on this, Dan?
Yeah,
as it goes by.
Yeah. Then there's one other thing that I wanted to bring up about this, and I had it in my email. I still don't quite understand it myself, which is is this related in any way to effort that's going to happen from the Planning Commission in terms of a comprehensive plan update? Because the Planning Commission still has that on their work plan. And so I'm just curious, like the current document from the comprehensive plan references our PROS master plan. So I'm just wondering if they need to be involved at any level, or at least know that we're doing this. If there's any kind of coordination either.
Yes, so I did get some clarification on the comprehensive plan, that it is on their work plan, and I think it has been on their work plan for quite some time, and it does keep getting pushed out based on priority.
Okay.
Having said that, the PROST master plan would serve as a reference document to whatever the comprehensive plan currently is. So
Okay.
I think it's a valuable piece, and which one is more current is kind of a, it's a leapfrog kind of situation where sometimes one plan gets updated and it's more current, and then the other one's more current. But I think the thing to keep in mind is they're both planning documents, and they reference, they should reference each other. And I think that continuity is there. We are gonna, the planning staff are aware we're doing the master plan, the PROS master plan, and certainly we can do an update to the commission to keep them informed as well.
Okay.
I think the one thing I'd add is when we went through the budget last year, both the master plan and the PROS master plan were both in the budget draft for 2020. The board decided to defer one of them since we were completing the CAPS master plan at the end of 2019, and then roll into two more master plans in the same year. In the context of everything else going on with PROS staff and planning staff, it just seemed to make more sense to prioritize one this year and do the next after. So the PROS master plan will feed into the master plan, the comp plan update.
Okay.
Okay, so sounds like at this point in time, there's a kickoff meeting next week.
Correct. And I'll communicate that with the entire group. And then right now I heard that Dan, Todd, and Sarah were possibly interested in being sort of a subcommittee for that. And we can be a little flexible with that if we need to, depending on the subject matter. So.
Okay. And this document will get sorted out with, we'll get it out to everyone. But also we'll sort out Todd took on the figuring out the Dropbox. That's what I
Yes.
heard.
Yeah, this document is not ginormous yet, so I can email it out, but yeah, we should, the Dropbox thing, it can get complicated.
Yeah. It took me a long time to get in there the first time.
Wow.
Okay, so that kind of covers the master plan and next steps. So I think it really all comes down to that kickoff meeting. And then I would just say that we want to make sure we're dedicating enough time in each meeting to really focus on that. And that's where also I'm hoping that, you know, getting through the amenities and the trails, that's just leading and springboarding into spending more time in the master plan document.
Absolutely.
So I did put on the weed and pest management program because we just always talk about that, but with the time and where we are, I'm not really sure if we need to go through that right now.
We're not going to talk about the goats.
The goats are coming. Goats are going to come in June.
In cages. Well,
corrals. They're going to be in corrals.
Corrals, yeah, movable corrals.
Yes. Once we get a date on that, I'll make sure that all the committees are aware of that, and there's going to be some PR and opportunity for the public to interact a little bit and learn about the goats. So I think that'll be fun.
Well,
the only other thing I would add about the weeds is that when we get ready to formulate the RFP for our landscape contract, we'll touch base with committees as well on the content of that RFP. So I know there's some interest in putting some suggested content in there related to weed management as well as some other areas. So, use of electric equipment and alternative fuel, those kind of things.
well, and I know one of the things that is typically a bigger discussion is usually when they're spraying for mosquitoes and other things like that, and other pesticides. There's lots of those questions come up around this time of year when there's more weeds and maintenance done outside. So anyway, that's a quick update on that. So any other questions on that one? Anyone? Ron, are you sure you don't want to ask more about goats?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
And then I put this on here again, the trail etiquette memo. And I was just, we went over this last month, and, we talked about that there are so many opportunities for people to be outdoors and just the reinforcement of it. And I guess I'm curious with the group, how can we distribute it? And is there a way to kind of put this out there as trail etiquette for the town of Superior? And is there even like a way to put it on the website or something like that? Or
The one thing that jumped out here at me, Corey, is 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. Is that in the code of Superior, or is that something we're making up?
Well, and I think that was the bigger thing with this before, was I think this was Alan's take on something he had done before, right? And it doesn't always, there was some verification required.
Yeah,
Yes, I think that's correct.
yeah, and I don't know that 15 miles an hour is in the code anywhere, just more of a guideline, recommended trail speed limit.
I think it makes sense. I just, how it's written, it would lead me to believe that it's some rule in the town.
Ticket when you're out there hauling buns.
Yeah.
It is not in this town ordinance or code. as a speed limit.
Maybe
So it
we
would
add
be-
that to say, please maintain relatively safe speed.
Is that something, Neil, that you think the town board is going to take up, both electric bicycles and a speed limit on those, or is that not something that's going to happen?
It's a good question. I mean, I think if it's something we think we need to do, then we can absolutely do it. We haven't heard a lot of complaints about it. I think Boulder County and Boulder specifically does have speed limits. I think there is an e-bike speed limit now too in the open space. It's probably worthwhile for the town to take it up to make sure we're consistent. Leslie, you and I can probably talk offline about what we need to do there.
Sure. And I did run this suggested list by Matt, and he was generally in support of it. I think there was some thought that there might be changes with the increase in trail usage, that there might be some things to add on here based on the COVID-19 and the need for people to distance and those kind of things, if there was anything we wanted to add here. But I think generally everybody's in support of this.
One thing that I might think we should add, or at least consider, is, I'm out a lot, and you get people going both ways and both sides of trails and streets, and there seems to be a lot of confusion whether generally on a trail you walk on the right and then you pass on the left. But if you're on a street and cars are coming at you, you walk against traffic. But you'll see folks who are on the right, on the left, and you end up going back and forth, dodging them. So it'd be nice if we could try to include something of the language like that, saying that on trails, you stay to the right. If you're on a road, walkers walk against traffic, or something to that effect.
Just trying to.
Corbett, do you want to put together some language that would say what you think needs that, and put it in the be safe section or something?
Yeah.
So right above the be safe section, the category is,
oh yeah,
stay to the right and pass with care, and clearly given on your left, maybe emphasizing on your left when passing and staying to the right. But
that specifically says bicycles and not walkers, right?
Yeah. But I mean, it's really trail etiquette, so I don't know if we're going to get into much street etiquette, because then all of a sudden I'm getting into cars and traffic, right? I mean,
Yeah, I think we should steer clear of that.
And I've noticed the more I walk around town right now, it's like it doesn't matter if you're on the right side or the left side. People cross the street when you see somebody coming at you. And
Yeah.
everyone's jumping back and forth, giving each other space. So, and I've also found that, the roads provide a lot more flexibility for space, but the trail is where the etiquette is really needed. And, that's where people need to be courteous of each other and just aware of how they're around other people.
That's a good point, Corey.
maybe some A-frame plastic signs that don't cost a terrible amount of money to put at trailhead entrances. Maybe, we're not going to have them all over town, I don't think, but at the major trailheads where there's clear entrances.
There also may be some value in being consistent with Boulder County. And we may want to even have a joint planning session on that, or conversation.
Does Boulder County have anything on the trailheads at the little entrance? I mean, it's usually the map and there's various, warnings or other things, but I guess I haven't seen anything on a trail etiquette on there.
I think I think now with the COVID, they have blue and white signs with, stay 6 feet apart, pass on the left, that type of stuff. I should have taken a picture of it.
Seems like signs are popping up everywhere, so I just trying to. Yeah,
There's a little bit of sign overload right now. I would agree, but I can reach out to the county and see what their current sign recommendations would be for etiquette.
Okay. Sounds great. Well, I don't know.
The biggest issue I'm seeing right now are families taking up the entire trail, or folks with headphones on when you're trying to pass. Either one or two abreast. With headphones on, you're trying to pass and you say, I'm on your left, but they can't hear with the headphones. I'm not sure if we'll really even be able to address that in here, but that's, at least from my experience, what the bigger issues I'm seeing lately.
Okay. Well, I don't know how to add some of those, Corbett. Not sure.
Is there an urgency in getting something up on the web, or some signage somewhere, or is it fair to have Leslie reach out to the county and see if we can have either reuse something they have or go with this? I'm just wondering what do we need to do and what's the urgency on this?
For me, the urgency always is that people are very respectful of each other in the beginning, and then as time goes on, they get more frustrated with each other. And I'm already starting to see that in a lot of the trail usage, that people are being less polite to each other. So that would be the only sense of urgency, really.
And from my standpoint, it'd just be nice to get something out there, because I know we talked about it in our last meeting. And as you said, the trail usage is just higher, and just having that reminder out there. But if it's not telling the right message, I don't want to rush it out, so we want to make sure that the message is clear. And if there's a contradictory message with some of the concepts we have here and what Boulder County is putting out, it seems like if Leslie's able to talk to somebody and just get a baseline understanding of Boulder County's approach, it's unified messaging right now is hard to come by. But it is, there's a lot of messages out there.
The other thing about this that just struck me is, if I'm picturing myself going up to the trail on my bike or running, and there's this many words, the chance of me reading it is just about zero. So maybe there's two formats. One thing that we could put with some more detail on the web, and maybe a skinnied up version of the real key points that could be by trailheads.
I agree with that.
Yeah, the one I saw for Boulder County, it was a blue and white sign, and it had like 6 different pictures, and like one was like wear the masks 6 feet apart. I wish I would have taken a picture of it, but that's the one that I thought was effective, because it's just quick little pictures and then.
Yeah, and so if we could do something, I mean, I think I know what you're talking about, Sarah. I've seen similar things, but I think that was more targeted at the COVID-19 thing that we're in. And so if we could come up with something similar to that, where it's real simple pictures that you drive by and you think about, I think something like that might be more effective at trailheads than a bunch of text.
Yeah. I'm just not sure how we convey that. Quick bullet points for look ahead, pass on your left, So I guess question, just for expedience of time here, I guess the point would be, if Leslie, if you can reach out to Boulder County and see if there's any Boulder County standard, and if there's any, if anyone finds anything that we could potentially put up as a graphic version, because really that's what we were saying is there a graphic version that's quicker and easier to kind of decipher?
So are we specifically looking for signage that's related to the current situation, the social distancing, CDC guidelines, or are we talking about general, more permanent trail etiquette?
I'm thinking more general trail etiquette, but it's a kind of a cross right now, and I'm not sure how that balances. Because the signage you're seeing for Boulder County,
That's specific to COVID if they're talking about masks and 6 feet.
but there is just a general rules of thumb when you're on the trail, and those are the things that it's like you may have to read a list. And is the list on a website or is it on a trailhead sign? It'd be great if it's in both places, and there are some people that stop and read the signs on the trailhead, but I don't know if you're going to catch the guy flying by on a bike at 16 miles an hour.
Well, I mean,
He's getting pulled over.
even if you just had the bolded section on a sign, that's very little reading. And it just says, hey, as you're on the trail, be courteous, bikes, or bikes and pedestrians stay to the right, be safe, protect trails, be responsible with pets. Even that is good reminders as folks gets on the trail.
And then it seems like the smaller text could be more of a website kind of additional information.
Or a sign that says, hey, use your best common sense while you're out here, please.
All right.
I'm happy to do some research, and I think there's a lot of examples out there. So
can we put you on the agenda for next month, Leslie, to show us what we should do?
I will provide you with feedback on what I have found out.
I'm just looking for, with the heavy usage, if there's something that we can get out there and just be responsible and let people think about trail etiquette, it'd be great.
Hey, I have a quick question. Who knows who the individuals are that have been at the Colton Trailhead? I think like in a neon vest, sitting there to sort of ensure people are in masks. Is that a volunteer or a town employee, or anybody know?
It is not a town employee.
Are they authorized to be there?
Maybe a ranger, like a
Are
Boulder.
they with the county, perhaps?
Must
I
be.
haven't seen anybody.
Colton.
I'm pretty sure they're with Boulder County.
Yeah.
It might be with the park ranger, Boulder County Parks.
Yeah, I believe so.
Because they also were the ones that put out a sign that said parking lot is full in Detroit, Colton Trailhead, in A-frame. So
While we're on that subject, were they the same ones who propped that gate open over at Colton, or was that just a bystander who did it? Because there's a big rock there where the gate propped open.
I've seen every single gate in that entire open space propped open, so I think that's just users.
It's not actually just the rock. Someone actually removed the gate latch. I'm not sure who did that, but
and a lot of them
looks
are
like
wire tied open. I think it's users. I think it's the bike community that doesn't want to grab the gate every time, and you can't really blame them.
I didn't know, because I know that the farmer just put the cows out there last week, and so they're out there.
They're going to show up at Dan's back door.
that's all right. I'm a farm boy. I can handle it.
Bring your shovel.
all right. Well, with that, we're getting late, and I just want to wrap up We added just the Zaharias proposal update, and Ron, I think that we covered a lot of this in the comment session, but didn't know if there was any other additional comments.
No, I think Mrs. DM covered it nicely, and I guess we're just waiting on to see what the planning commission does on their next meeting. My reason for adding this was there any new information given to the planning commission that the board's going to see that we should be reviewing? That's all.
The answer is we don't know of anything at this time, right?
Yeah, right. Because they didn't make a decision, so that's pretty much we're done with nothing to review.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm late, and so I missed that conversation. But has that been rezoned from commercial to residential?
No, according to Ms. CM, the last meeting they did not make a decision because there was so much apparently public comment. The meeting got pushed till 11 o'clock, so they decided to hold off till their next meeting to make a decision.
Oh, I'm glad the public showed up. Okay, great.
Yeah, me too. So to answer your question, Corey, we can close that and move on.
We brought it up at the beginning to add as a discussion point, so I just wanted to make sure if there was any additional discussion, not during the open public comment, that we had the opportunity. So sounds like there is no more. So last piece, I just wanted to run through just updates of where we are. It sounds like CenturyLink I put on there is just an update of where that stands, and don't know if Neil or Leslie, just it sounds like the purchase is kind of on its way through.
Yeah, we funded the escrow. I'm not exactly sure where we're at in terms of the process, but it's moving forward.
I don't have any additional information either.
Okay. And then the Colton Road project, Colton Road project, 1500 Colton, the community.
Yes.
Center.
The construction contract is currently scheduled for Tuesday's board meeting for approval.
So that is moving forward though, right?
It is moving forward. We had the pre-construction agreement with PG Arnold, and we're recommending them as for the construction contract moving forward. Probably construction starting late June, stretching through the end of 2020. Potential opening early 2021.
Okay. And so have they come to a final plan of that space? I know that there was COVID maybe.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some scale back on that just based on pricing, and that hasn't been completely vetted out yet. The basic components of the building will still be there, but some of the bells and whistles might have to come in later. So, but it is looking really nice and moving forward, and a lot of enthusiasm there. So it's good.
Just going down the list, and this is in no particular order, but pickleball.
Pickleball contract was awarded to Goodland Construction, and they don't have a start date yet, but we're targeting mid-June with about a 40 work days to complete that.
Do we know if that's going to interfere or close down the skate park while that's going on? Because I know it's being extremely heavily used right now. So
yeah, no, I don't foresee. There might be some time periods where they need to monitor the traffic over there, the foot traffic, and how people are coming and going, and those kind of things have some restrictions, but it should not affect the skate park, the bike park. it might, we might have to reroute some trails slightly for that time period.
Okay. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, US 36 trail connection update. I swear I saw.
Yeah, so that, the board approved the engineering piece of that this year. And then, the way, Alex Arnello describes it, there's 4 parts of it. We're doing the engineering this year, and then we're doing the part along 88th Street this year. And then segment 1 and 2, there you go. Segment 1 and 2 will get done in 2021.
So this is 2021?
Yeah, the red and green lines are 2021. The piece along 88th Street will be this summer, as part of the 88th Street, complete tear down and replace. And then there's a little chunk that's going to be between Shamrock and the green segment along Rock Creek Parkway that is TBD.
Okay. And then with this, is that also going to put in, as soon as they're done with the pickleball, the connection between the skate park, pickleball, and the bridge?
You mean the concrete between the parking lot and the skate park?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I still hear lots of comments on that, so that's why I asked.
Yeah.
Because there's the connection from over here, but there's still no connection from where people are dropping off, picking up kids and riding over there.
Yeah, I mean, and Liz, I guess you and I can talk to Matt. It's not specifically called out for within any of the existing scope of works, but with the $3 million that Goodland is getting to do 88th Street and the pickleball courts, maybe they can pour some concrete along, 80 or I guess about 80 feet.
Or even I heard asphalt was cheaper these days. So.
It is. It just doesn't last as long. So no one on staff likes asphalt trails.
I can certainly have a conversation with Alex about the timing and staging of that. I don't know that he has the exact layout for that 36 bikeway improvement that's going to happen next year, if he has that now. And how that might affect any improvements we do there. But it's a good conversation to have.
Well, and this is also one I want to make sure that, with our discussion about crusher fine, is there a way to make sure when all you tear out all that crusher fine, can we leave a 3-foot strip, 2-foot strip of crusher fine adjacent to the trail that's getting put in?
Yeah, I mean, speaking for myself, the last thing I want to do is lose one of the few crusher fine trails we have. But we'll make sure it stays, high on the list of things to, if it does have to get replaced with a concrete trail for, connection to the bikeway, we'll find a new way to add back a crusher fine that goes across Autry.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the other thing I'd suggest is if we can't get crusher fine next to it, if we could at least not put amenities right next to it so that we can add it later.
You mean like 8 trees like right next to it?
Yeah.
It helps with the hills that are created in the concrete when the tree grows next to it.
Well, did you guys say you want shade? Now you don't want shade?
Oh, nice comment. And then the last thing, is there any other updates that anyone, concerns, thoughts?
Hey, Neil, going back to the conversation on the construction on 88th, I have a lot of people asking me why they're going so deep into the property.
Yeah, part of that was staging, because we're widening 88th Street to effectively 4 lanes. It'll be striped to 2.
Right.
So they needed a lay down area for a lot of the piping and stuff like that, and then it's going to come back.
Okay. A lot of people are concerned that they're actually starting the park project. So by doing the preliminary work on the whatever
on the roadway.
Yeah, so that we won't have to tear the road up again when they start building park.
And just in case anybody's wondering what happens to the prairie dogs, the town has a process. They trap them. There's some traps set out there early on. The sort of the cruelty-free traps where it catches them in a cage. And then any that did get caught, I don't know how many got caught. They get donated to a raptor sanctuary in Fort Collins.
So the birds can eat them?
Yeah.
At least they're, wow.
I guess it's better than the Canadian geese donation to the homeless from Denver.
True.
Okay, well, with that, I'm going to try and wrap this up. We're running late. So just so that we get a email blast out at the end of the week, 3 sentences of just high level overview.
I put one together already that we could just maybe approve if you want me
Thank
to
you.
read it. So sentence 1, the committee discussed amenity rankings and approved a motion to share rankings with the town board. Sentence 2, the committee reviewed a joint OSAC PROSTAC statement regarding Town 15 and approved a motion to share it with the town board. And the third one, the committee reviewed trail rankings, discussed possible budget items for the 2021 budget, and discussed initial steps for the PROS master plan development process kickoff this month.
I think that third one was a run-on sentence.
It is.
Let me get my editor.
I was trying to
I'm
lump
okay with
everything
it.
left into one. I can take out any of those things you don't think we should include.
I think it's great.
I think it was awesome.
Thank you, Dan.
Sure.
Damn.
All right. Any other comments? I think that's perfect. And yeah. All right. Well, thank you all. We'll see you all in another month. And we'll go from there. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Bye, all.
See ya.
Thanks. See ya.